Hey guys, what is going on? My name is John Thomas. You're watching the Venom Racing LS S14 Drift Build. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode of the Venom Racing LS S14 Drift Build. Essentially, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of what's going on and what you should expect to see over the next coming episodes that are going to be coming up. Ultimately, right now, what I've got for you guys is I have a full S14 that is stripped down completely to the bare shell. I'm kind of going to be giving you guys videos of what's going on as I'm building this chassis. We have a lot of cool things that are going to be coming up for it. On the way, I've got some kooky D-Max hoods, some kooky fenders. I got a JDM kooky front bumper, all brand new. The only thing that I am missing for the front end is going to be actually the kooky headlights. I also got a custom-made tubed front end that's going to be coming in as well. Pretty much today what we're going to be doing, I've gotten the whole inside of the car kind of stripped down, mostly from paint all the way down to the bare metal. It was kind of a nasty rattle can of black from the previous owner. I decided I wanted to redo that, kind of make it a nice clean gloss white. This is actually my first time that I've ever painted a vehicle. I'm actually using a pretty cheap paint gun as well. I'm also doing the famously known Rust-Oleum paint job for the interior. The biggest reason I'm doing this is just because it's going to be a drift car. It is somewhat on a budget. Also because it's the interior. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of money on the interior, just getting it painted. Exterior, I'm not going to cheap out as much on the exterior job. That'll come soon as to what I'm going to be doing with that. But ultimately, I'm going to kind of give you guys more of a first-person view of what's going on. Essentially today what we're going to be doing is just kind of painting the interior of the car. Like I said, I'm doing a gloss white. I've actually already got my two layers of primer on the passenger side. That's already been done just because I was kind of testing out the gun. I wanted to see how the finish was ultimately going to come out before I showed it off to you guys. Just a fair warning, in no way am I professional. I just do this as a hobby, so by all means you don't have to copy what I'm doing, and by all means what I might be doing may not be the right way to do things. This is just kind of my experience showing you guys how I get things done. Maybe I can help some of you guys out with these videos. Of course, if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free just to add them in the comments down below this video, and by all means I'll try to reply to all of them as I can. So essentially, let's go ahead and get to it. I'm going to go ahead and strap the camera to my head. We're going to kind of start filming. We're going to start over on the driver's side. I did the passenger side, like I said, first in terms of primer. We're going to go ahead and knock out the driver's side real quick. Then once we have our 2 layers of primer on that, we're going to go ahead and let that dry pretty well for a couple of hours. We'll come back and then we'll do the kind of the gloss white finish, both on the passenger and the driver's side. Then once we're done with that, we're going to knock out the back. The back I didn't sand all the way down to metal. I didn't want to spend too much time on the rear just because it was extremely hard to sand it and get everything done with the roll cage already in the car, and also because nobody's ever going to spend much time looking at the rear, so as long as it just matches color-wise to the rest of the car, it doesn't look terrible, I'm really not too worried about it. So let's go ahead and get to it. Alrighty guys, so here's kind of just a quick overview of where we're currently at with the S14 chassis. As you can see, it's literally just a bare shell. I mean, literally the only thing that it has on it is the front and rear subframes. That's pretty much it. So there's a couple of arms they gotta end up getting for the rear. Most of the S13 stuff is actually already S14 arms. So I'm actually gonna end up grabbing a lot of the stuff I had on my S13 and bringing them on over to the S14. But ultimately, as you can see right here, right now, like I said, I went ahead and already kind of primered and got the passenger side already ready and mostly done. I did that simply because of the fact, first time I've ever painted anything automotive at all. I wanted to kind of see how the gun worked and how the results were before I ultimately made a video, because I was still kind of trying to figure some things out. Ultimately, it came out really good. I'm pretty happy with the finish. It's honestly, it's really good, especially for what I used. I'll kind of give you guys a quick overview of what all I've been using. Pretty much right now, the way I have it, kind of made my little paint booth here. Kind of just have a little single car garage over there. I put this wall up. I literally just taped it up to the ceiling. It works just fine. I got this little space heater kind of sitting in the corner here, kind of just to keep the area a little bit warm. So it's starting to get a little bit chilly outside. I just wanted to make sure the paint was able to fully dry and everything. Don't want to spill my paint here, speaking of that. Ultimately, here's the gun I bought. I literally just picked this up from Northern Tool. It was about a $40 gun. Pretty much the same thing as what Harbor Freight has to offer. It was just a little bit cheaper at Northern Tool. And this is in comparison. I know Harbor Freight has like the $15, $20 ones. This is in comparison to more or less their Harbor Freight's professional gun that was like $60. I was really considering getting that one. But I decided just to go ahead and get this one just because, like I said, I wasn't going for a really good finish. I just wanted something that was a little bit more acceptable and was going to make the car look a lot better than it previously already had. So this is pretty much all it is. It's just the Northern Tool paint gun. Just got a regulator, got a moisture filter at the bottom there. This is also what I'm using. It's just a white primer. I did that because I figured once I put the gloss white actually on the interior, it'd make it come out just a little bit better. That's kind of ultimately what I was going for. But like I said, the car itself is mostly a bare shell. It did have an old tube front end on there. I kind of left half of it on there just to show you guys. Essentially, I'm cutting the old one off. I really don't like the design of it. It's really kind of a cheap homemade one. I mean, it's not terrible for what it is. It definitely got the job done, but the welds are pretty atrocious. They don't look good at all. Actually have a really nice tube front end currently being made. It's going to be on its way here, hopefully within the next couple of days. We'll kind of obviously do a complete video of that. But as you can see, if I kind of remove this away from you, I've started kind of stripping down some of the engine bay as well. I'm going to get it all the way down to the bare metal, put primer. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do white primer along with white gloss paint, same as I'm doing with the interior. I'm going to match that with the engine bay. So here's where this project kind of started out. Here is my trusty old S13. Oh, how I miss this beauty. So ultimately what ended up happening is that S14, I got it as a really good deal, just as a bare shell with the roll cage already in it. It was just an offer I could not pass up, so I just picked it up. Ultimately, the thought on the S14, I kind of had it sitting back here for a little while. I was just going to use it kind of mostly as a car for kind of a backup drift car. Ultimately, I was going to either put like a KAT, SR20, maybe an RB20 in it, just kind of whatever came up for the right price at the time. I was just going to kind of throw whatever in there because I was working on this for this whole past year. This is my LS S13 swap that I did. I was working on it pretty much all of last year. It took me a good full year to get done. Now I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on a lot of really good stuff. I mean, I got brand new radiator, brand new. This is a whole CTSV front accessory kit, all completely brand new. The only things that were pretty much used was the motor itself and then also the transmission. The motor is actually just a 5.3 block. I did that just because I wanted something that was really cheap, but still made just about 300 horsepower. That's all I was shooting for. And that was even 300 horsepower to the crank. Didn't necessarily have to be to the wheels. So I just pretty much got a 5.3, put all the LS accessories on it, put a CTSV front accessory kit on it. I also originally bought some Hooker long tube headers for the LS swap. Now here's the catch though. I'm not running a Sickie swap kit. I am actually running a swap kit that uses the Z32 5-speed transmission. So it actually comes with its own adapter plate. You can kind of see it a little bit right here. It's got its own adapter plate. Obviously the Z32 transmission there had its own adapter plate, flywheel, came with the motor mounts, transmission mount, drive shaft. It was a really good swap. So I ended up investing in that. It was about the same price as the Sickie kit. Only thing was I had to get headers. The biggest issue I ran into with the long tube headers is since the starter for the motor is over on the transmission itself, I couldn't actually fit the long tube headers on there. I tried for a couple of months cutting up the long tube headers and kind of trying to refit them to make it work. Ended up being too much of a pain. Ended up picking up some of these. I think these are C4 Corvette headers. Ended up picking these up for like 40 bucks, and then I just made my own downpipes. And so right now it's pretty much just 2 straight pipes exhaust just going to the middle of the car. I didn't actually complete the exhaust. So what happened with this motor was I pretty much got it running. I was tuning it. I have a standalone Megasquirt ECU that I bought for the car. I was trying to teach myself how to tune. I did all the wiring and everything on it. As you can see, I kind of put the wiring in the glove box here. There's the Megasquirt there. Of course, that's not finished by any means at all. It was just to get it up and running. What ended up happening, the motor was running great. I was starting to tune it. I'd run it up and down the street a few times just to kind of get a base tune on there. Then once the motor got warm, it would completely lose oil pressure. The stranger thing was I could let it sit, cool off. Once it was kind of cool, it would then be back up to 40 psi in oil pressure whenever I'd first started up. But then as soon as it'd warm up, it'd drop oil pressure again. I mean, it'd drop it all the way to 0. Kind of had no idea what was going on. I asked some people on forums what they thought it was going to be, and a lot of people said it sounded like excessive bearing clearance. So I actually have my oil filter. It was mounted right here. Ended up pulling that out, found a couple of bearing chunks in there. It wasn't anything too bad. I mean, it was something I was like, yeah, I could possibly get away with it, until I drained my oil. And then there was a ton. I mean, I didn't even look through the oil. I just instantly saw like a little pile, kind of gold mines of a bearing material. So I pretty much knew this motor was on its way out. It basically needs an overhaul. It needs a complete rebuild. But since it's a 5.3 and it's literally the cheapest part of this build, I already have sourced myself another 5.3 that I'm going to be picking up. This one's going to be traded away for some other parts for the S14. So since I had to pull everything back out and redo everything, I decided since that car already had the roll cage in it, it's better off for me just to go ahead and put this in there and kind of build up that car, and then that way this car, because this is my first ever 240 I've ever owned. I've owned another S13 after this as well. It was just a parts car that I parted out to make money on, and then that ended up getting pretty much crushed. So this car is the car that I've had so many KAs in. I've blown up like 3 or 4 KAs. I've blown up one RB20, and then I had another decent running RB20 in it for over a year. And then obviously I did this 5.3 swap, and then it ate the 5.3 as well. Not really the car's fault though. So ultimately my plan is to rebuild this car kind of over time. It's kind of my baby right now. It's a little janky with the front end and everything, but I've always kind of wanted to build this car up, and I've never really put in the time to build the suspension and the chassis. And so since I'm going to be building the S14, once the S14 is done, I'm going to take the time to kind of slowly redo this whole car and make it really nice again. So ultimately, let's go ahead and get back to the S14. Alrighty guys, so here we are on day 2. I just got done mixing my paint. I got a bad batch. I had some expired mineral spirits that I mixed in and ended up making the paint thicker instead of thinner. So I had to do a new batch. Here we are on day 2. I did about 2 coats, both on the driver and passenger side.
They let it sit overnight, completely dry out. Here's where we're currently at with it. Overall, the finish is pretty good. I mean, there's a slight amount of orange peel on it, but it's honestly not too terribly bad. It doesn't make it look extremely disgusting by any means. Ultimately, as you can see, the biggest issue that I'm having is over here. It's kind of turning yellow. This is, I believe, because of the sound deadening material having like grease and oil and everything kind of built up in it. Didn't even think about that before I started painting. The biggest reason I kind of left this here was because it was taking a long time to get all that removed. And the seat's going over this anyway, so it was not going to be seen. So I wasn't really too worried about trying to get all that taken out. And then this happened. So, and you can kind of see it back here too. If you guys are thinking about doing this, definitely go ahead and get all that stuff removed. Because it does look really nasty, especially if you're painting your car a lighter color. Ultimately, though, it's not too bad. Most of this is going to get covered up by the seat, so I'm really not too worried about it. I'm glad it's not really on this, because this is kind of the centerpiece that everyone's going to see. As you can see, the back hasn't really gotten touched at all. It mostly just has dust on it. I primered a little bit on that side where I had it down to bare metal, and also on this side as well. But now today we're going to go ahead and kind of get all this finished up painting, because I got the paint already mixed up, ready to go. There's a couple of spots on the roll bar I got to touch. Kind of up here I kind of neglected, didn't touch too much. Same thing on that side. You can see where it's all kind of black over there on the driver's side of the car. That's pretty much it for today. All we got to do is just finish doing that. And then once we're done with that, we'll definitely let it kind of dry. We'll let it sit again overnight. We'll come back to it, and hopefully we'll have pretty decent looking interior. Like I said, I'm not really too worried about it being perfect, just because a lot of this is going to end up getting covered up at the end of the day anyways. So once that's done, we'll definitely kind of show you guys the results. And that should kind of wrap up the first video of this build.
With crimson secrets and forbidden bliss, can't stay still, don't stop that thrill. My bones crave your skin, temptation within, mistakes ignite the silence. Nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Alrighty guys, so I think I put the final coat of paint onto the car. This is kind of where I think I'm going to go ahead and call it quits. Paint's still finishing drying here and there in a couple of areas that I last finished painting. It's been sitting for about 2 hours now. Of course I'm going to let it sit all overnight, that way it's completely dry, ready to go. Ultimately though, I'm really happy with the results, especially for the amount of money that I put into this. I mean, realistically, I put about $100 into this whole paint job with the paint and with the gun and everything. But I also had my own air compressor and everything to run that. I just put a lot of hours and hours of sanding into the car to kind of try and clean it up. That's where you can see, obviously, up here I sanded it, up there I sanded it, got it all nice and smooth. It looked great. Like I said, in the rear, I didn't even touch it at all. Ultimately, I'm really happy with the results. There's a couple of areas you're probably going to see on the roll bar and also kind of in the back a little bit. I'm going to touch them up just with a can of white spray paint, just because it was really hard to get the gun in there along with the air hose and to not hit the can with the paint and everything in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of spray some areas with some spray paint, but that's nothing that you guys necessarily need to see. I'm sure you all know how to shoot some spray paint. Ultimately, what's next, though, I'm actually going to be pulling the V8 out of the S13. That way I can get that ready to go. Hopefully soon I'll be receiving the tubed front end for this car. That way I can go ahead and get that installed, welded in, and then we'll also be painting the engine bay as well. And then once that's done, we should be dropping in the engine and everything once I get the new one in, and then also putting on all my suspension arms, hopefully getting some coilovers, and hopefully this thing will start moving along pretty quickly. If you guys have any questions or concerns, like I said, put them in the comment section down below. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you can see any future videos of this build as they come up. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.